Welcome to Warchant TV, and we're going to talk some Florida State quarterbacks today. And to do this, to go back and look the last few years, and this accompanies a story on warchant.com where we're tracing kind of where Florida State got to this point at quarterback. And I want to bring on our recruiting analyst, Michael Langston, who does a great job for us. You want to know anything about recruiting, check with him. And Michael, this is a little bit of a sore subject here, but I think a lot of fans going back to this last Saturday, the number one question we got asked after the game was, well, why didn't Florida State just bench James Blackman and go to somebody else? Because James Blackman, we saw the game, had a rough outing. Really, after those first two drives, he went 16 out of 35, had the interception, had a couple fumbles, some poor decision-making, and it really kind of snowballed from there. But, we had an injury to Chubba Purdy. Jordan Travis was hurt for a big part of practice. He got in there a little bit, but how effective he could be. So really they got to this point, Michael, because there's been so many misses in recruiting over the years. And I really want to go back, and you can see the story on warchant.com. If you're just watching this on YouTube, go there. We're going to go a lot more detail about this, but I want to get into some of the highlights. And what's crazy to me is this all began when Florida State was on top of the college football world, won a national championship, finishing out a 20-game winning streak, getting ready to go back to the playoffs, and they get an early commitment from a very talented young quarterback named Malik Henry. Mm-hmm. And then Jimbo Fisher proceeds to have him as the only quarterback in that next class. He committed early in 2016, the only guy. And you and I got to see him, Michael, firsthand. I know that Orlando camp looked really good, but there are a few red flags surrounding Malik Henry back in the day, weren't there?
Yeah, there were. Obviously, he had a really good performance in the Under Armour game. Yeah. I think Elite 11, he did very well there. But then, there's things that they're going on with, things away from the field, drugs and stuff like that. And then you had problems when he got to FSU. You continue to hear issues of stuff. But I had heard stuff just when he was at IMG that there was issues. So it just seemed to just keep snowballing. And then when he got to FSU, we just saw more of the problems and really just destroyed their quarterback momentum as far as getting the right guy, because they were seriously counting on this guy to be a three-year starter to kind of be the next guy in line. And he was very highly rated. So it just destroyed them as far as the decision of where there was red flags, and maybe they should have done more background as far as on that stuff. But I think they felt like Jimbo's dealt with quarterbacks that have issues or different things, but I don't think none to the level of this one. But I just think they thought they could have got past it, but it really just really started a snowball effect of bad situations for quarterbacks.
Yeah, to me, it's not so much taking the chance because, like you said, he's very talented. We saw him; he was a 5-star at one point, and then some of the issues he got dropped down to a 4-star, according to Rivals.com. But to me, you didn't have an insurance policy. You're making a chance on this. You could have signed another quarterback in case he didn't work out. And as it turns out, he did not. He got suspended before that for his freshman season, and then he was gone by the end of the year. So then, let's jump ahead to the next class, Michael. Florida State signs 2 quarterbacks. Jimbo Fisher's last full recruiting cycle. We'll get into him checking out later. Last full recruiting cycle. Bailey Hochman, a 3-star undersized guy. I guess he was kind of an add-on. And Blackman was kind of the guy in that class. But even at that point, you thought he's a real skinny kid. He's a little bit of a project, probably going to be a couple years. It turns out he ended up having to start because of all the problems and injuries that happened to Florida State. Around that time period, what's going on? Because this is, for the backdrop of the fans who may remember this, Jimbo Fisher put 3 straight guys into the league as first-round draft picks. You go back to Christian Ponder, E.J. Manuel, then obviously Jameis. He could have had the pick of the litter. And this just seemed a little bit like, Blackman is pretty good. He was a Rivals 250 guy. He wasn't shoplifter. And Bailey Hochman, well, again, not a great signee at 3 stars. So what was going on there at the time of Florida State?
Well, I think with Bailey Hochman, they were, he was a coach's son coming in there. They felt like this is a guy that could grind it out, maybe even turn into a Christian Ponder because he's so well, he knows the playbook so well. He's his coach's son, very good as far as adjusting to things. And then with James Blackman, I think he went to camp. He really jumped out at Jimbo when his camp performance. I think that's really took off, but you still saw when I watched James, I would see James in high school. He was athletic, but you could tell he doesn't like to run. He's not great at running at it, as far as running. And then there's inconsistencies as far as throwing the ball, but you saw the big arm. So that was the excitement, I think, with Jimbo was as he saw the big arm, he thought he could develop them and probably don't think Jimbo looked at it like, you know what, I'm not going to be here next year after your freshman year. I don't think Jimbo looked at it like, I think he said, here's a guy I can develop these skills that he's not good at, like accuracy and consistency, but he's got height. He's got the stuff I look for as far as in the quarterback. So I think he had everything Jimbo looked for, but I think it just, one, it was terrible for James because, I mean, now going to current situation, he's got 3 head coaches that he's had to deal with. Yeah. But I think from Jimbo's perspective at that time was, hey, this is a guy that I think I can develop into that, 4 and 5 star type of player that could help our offense. But I don't think anybody imagined it would go this horribly.
Really, when you look back at this, you almost have to believe there was some arrogance by Jimbo Fisher. He figures, you know what? Give me anybody. I'm going to mold him into a great quarterback. Malik Henry, I don't care about all the outside stuff. He's got talent. I'm going to mold him. That you mentioned the other 2 guys who obviously, didn't jump out at you as elite quarterbacks. So Jimbo Fisher just thought, just give me some clay. I'm going to mold it into a great sculpture. It doesn't matter. And again, it seems the arrogance on his part to do. But now, Michael, let's jump ahead. Now it gets really weird because you refer to that Jimbo Fisher, for all intents and purposes, checks out. So they effectively don't recruit. And then he leaves for Texas A&M. They hire Willie Taggart. And then is it because there was just so much going on at the time they couldn't sign another quarterback in that class?
Yeah, it was just a short amount of time. I mean, you don't usually get quarterbacks, right before signing day, and I think that's when Willie came in. So that was going to be a difficult transition for them to do anyway. So I think fans were not okay with it, but I think fans were kind of like, okay, we understand the time frame that there's just not a lot of time to get the right guy. We don't want them just to take a guy just to have a guy on the roster. So I think they understood the first year. The second year is where it gets quite crazy. Yeah.
So you got nothing. 2018, Hochman leaves, so you're only left with Francois, who's already at this point having off the field issues, and James Blackman, and that's all you got. So you really need to land a quarterback in this next class going into 2019. The good news is they get an early commitment from a pretty highly regarded recruit in Sam Howell. But it gets weird, and I'm going to have you kind of break this down. What happens, Michael? Because we know the decommitment. There were some other guys involved. There's a lot of layers to this. So I'm going to kind of let you lay this out. He makes the early commitment to Florida State. At the time, you have Walt Bell, who was the offensive coordinator at the time, who's really his main recruiter, and the reason he's coming to Florida State, not Willie Taggart so much. So play this out to the point where other quarterbacks, the decommitment plays out, and then what happens on the way to signing day.
Yeah, I mean, everything looked really good. The kid committed in the spring. Sam Howell, everyone's excited about him. The one thing that just always concerned me about Sam was it wasn't like he was a pom-pom waiver for FSU all the time. There wasn't like you hear him, he's calling guys like the current guy that they have now this year. But so that was the only thing that bothered me. But he was always really solid and firm. But the problem with that whole thing is Walt Bell was the guy that was connected to him. Willie Taggart and none of those coaches never talked to him, which is it's just unheard of a position or even a coordinator where the head coach doesn't have the relationship. Even with Jimbo, every kid he had a finger pulse on, and there wasn't any relationship there. And obviously we know Matt Brown took over, and then you started hearing rumors about he's going to end up at North Carolina, and then obviously they got rid of Walt Bell and the thing, I hear stuff behind the scenes that Walt Bell was actually talking to the Howell family saying, I don't think you should go there at FSU. So we were hearing that stuff. So you could kind of sense you're right on the wall that was going there, that he was going to get flipped to North Carolina, which he did. I think everyone pretty much expected that at some point. But just to not even and then just to get to the bigger part where it just infuriates fans is, you had another quarterback, Jaden Daniels out of California, very good ties to Willie Taggart and his staff, actually wanted to commit to Florida State in the summer, but the Howell family were kind of like, we want to be the only quarterback in this class. And Willie didn't put his foot down and say, look, what he should have done is said, look, Sam, you go somewhere else, you go somewhere else, but we got to get a quarterback. We got to get this guy in here. We got to have a talented quarterback. And Jaden really fit everything that Taggart was looking for. Wide open, great athlete, phenomenal performance in the Under Armour game, and certainly a guy that just irritated fans. And in a toast of ironic thing happened, FSU plays this kid in the Sun Bowl, and he beats them.
Yeah.
Of course. So that made the fans even more ticked off. And so, that's kind of the layer two. So basically, after all this shakes down, you get nothing. So you have no quarterback, which should never happen in a 2-year span. That's just ridiculous. But it's all because they didn't put their step forward and say, one, they didn't have a relationship with Sam Howell, but besides Walt Bell, you never let a coordinator take over that. And then two, you had a kid in the summer that you could have pulled, and then you just passed on him because you wanted to keep the Howells happy. And then you had other kids like Michael Johnson, I think, who ended up at Penn State. There were other guys that you could have added in this class, but you just didn't do it because of almost being held hostage with the Howell thing because your coach, your head coach, didn't put his foot down. And that's the first thing, and that's where it started. But, I mean, Jimbo had mistakes, but these were just colossal, just shoot yourself in the foot mistakes.
It's the old plan for the, what's the saying, plan for the best and expect the worst, kind of situation. They just planned for the best and just it didn't work out and they got screwed up. But funny thing, at the end of that class, Michael, so Howell leaves. They've got a little bit of time. They've got two options they're still going after, and that's John Plumlee and Lance Legendary, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Two guys. Right. And you're thinking, okay, the competition, you're going against Ole Miss for Plumlee, and Legendary, you're going against Maryland. Surely Florida State, that desperately needs quarterbacks, can beat out these mid-range schools. And a little bit's unfair because they had to get on these guys really late because Howell put them in a bad position. Yeah. But to go 0 for 2 on both guys and go 2 consecutive classes without recruiting. In the story, we talked to Mike Farrell a little bit. It's just unheard of with a team that needs quarterbacks to go 0 for 2 in 2 recruiting cycles.
It's inexcusable. First off, that's the first adjective I would say to describe it. And it's two, it's poor planning, poor organization. And out of those two, I thought John Ray would end up at Ole Miss. They were on him longer. He was an in-state kid in the state of Mississippi, I believe. So most people thought that he was going to end up at Ole Miss because of he had a chance to play early there. Why leave the state when you can have everything that you want right there? The one that hurt was Lance because a lot of people thought that he was coming to FSU, and he pulls a surprise on there on signing day and announces for Maryland. I don't think it was like a stunner, but it just kind of epitomized what the quarterback recruiting had turned into under that regime with Coach Taggart, and it was just a colossal mess.
So here we are now, Michael. We're finally up to speed here. Of course, Coach Mike Norvell takes over and immediately gets 2 quarterback commitments: Tate Rodemaker, Chubba Purdy. Tate enrolls early. Chubba's here, of course, gets hurt. I think I heard very positive things about how he was doing in practice. Had a really good scrimmage until he got hurt at the end, breaking his collarbone. So at this point, he's still out. Hopefully he's back healthy in a couple weeks, Michael. But a little bit on both of these guys here. I mean, what you scouted these guys pretty heavily. We talked about them a lot. Are one or both of these guys maybe capable of coming in and taking over this offense in year one?
I think Purdy's most likely because with the offensive line they have, it fits their skills better as far as being adapt to a guy that can run. I think he rushed for over 1,000 yards as a senior in high school, threw for over, I think, close to 4,000. So this is a multi-talented guy, the explosive guy. When we watch his film, the one thing that jumped out at me is just the ball location by Purdy. When this kid's on the run, and he's still making BBs. Where Tate I saw about 5 times. Very good pocket passer, very comfortable in the pocket, can read the field really well. Now, if you put him in a situation where you're mixing him in with another quarterback, say a Jordan Travis, I think you could get away with that. But it's got to be passing situations. You got to be full protect because he's not a great runner, but he's not a statue. He's not Dan Marino back there, but he's a guy that can move. But he's not Purdy or he's not Travis or even Blackman. But he's a pure passer, can read the field. He's certainly going to bring a lot there. Still needs to gain some weight, as a lot of people have pointed out. But the main thing that those 2 guys had and why they wanted these guys and why Dillingham and Norvell loved them is their passing efficiency. They're unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I think both of them were around 60%. They were very high on those because of their accuracy, their ball location. And if you look at every place that Norvell's been, from Arizona State to Memphis to Florida State now, his quarterbacks are all accurate, and his quarterbacks also do not make a lot of interceptions. So decision making is a big part of his evaluation. Obviously, those two guys didn't turn the ball over that much. They were very good as far as passing ratio, accuracy. Those were the things. Those were the reasons why that they wanted those guys. And you look at them, and if you go back to Mike Norvell's offense at Arizona State and in Memphis, he's like, these are Norvell kids that they fit everything you're looking for.
Yeah, and Tate playing at Valdosta, obviously one of the top schools in the state of Georgia. So at least he played at a high level of competition. Not exactly FBS, but still, if you're going to make the transition from high school to college, it's nice to have that. And finally, Michael, just Luke Altmaier, who is committed for the 2021 class. I guess here's another guy who's an Elite 11 quarterback. So you add him into the mix hopefully next year. Now you're building up. You're getting that insurance. You're getting a lot of quality quarterbacks. And I guess, how firm is he? And how would he also fit into Mike Norvell's offense?
Yeah, I think he's pretty firm. I talked to him right after the game. Obviously, that's the worst case scenario for me. I don't like talking to these kids when it's like there's a loss. I would much rather talk to them when there's positive. But he just said, the main message that he said was they got to be consistent. They got on the first drive, they were cooking, they had some momentum, and then he said as soon as they went to the first weather delay, is like all the momentum was just sapped out of them. It's like they can never get it back. So just said they got to be consistent. He didn't seem overly concerned about the offense. He knows what Dillingham and Norvell do, and I think he feels very comfortable with those guys. And that's why I say, when people ask all the time, like, oh, this school's going after this school's going, yeah, but when you have relationships that go that deep, that's why the head coach relationship is so big with your quarterbacks. And that's why it was so stunning to me with the Sam Howell thing, because that very rarely happens. So the offensive coordinator's tight with them. The head coach is really tight. And they go way back. This kid camped at Memphis like several years ago. Their families go way back with the Norvells and Dillingham. So they've got strong ties. And I don't think a kid's going to be just ready to jump off the ship because you start off the season bad, and then So I think you have three really good options there. Coming in, or even four. With the young guys like Luke Altmaier, Chubba Purdy, and Tate Rodemaker, and then you throw in Jordan Travis and and whatever, and see what happens with James Blackman. But I think it's a good situation, and I think the main thing you're seeing is another kid with Altmaier that, accuracy is a big deal. I think that's a big deal in his offense. This kid's fairly mobile as well. He's improved a lot on his speed, so he's going to be able to run. And I think that's a big deal. And I said this to people on our message board that, that were clamoring about Jeff Sims and, they should have taken him. But it's like, the thing is, it's like you can't take a kid if you don't see a long-term solution as far as fitting your offense. Yes, Jeff went out there and beat him. Yeah, it stinks for FSU, but at the same time, it doesn't change what the fit is. Jeff showed me exactly what I had seen before in high school. Very good athlete, a really good runner, but a guy that's inconsistent throwing the football and inconsistent with his decision-making. The fact, and I said this as well, the fact is FSU realistically should have got 3 pick sixes off that game, and they didn't. If Asante takes a different angle on some of those returns.
Well, Janarian Jones makes the block on his run.
Yeah. And then
if Rice holds on to the football, he walked into the end zone.
Yeah, who knows if you even bench the guy? We're not even talking about Sims like that. But I will like I said after the game, I give Sims the ultimate credit. He went out there, he settled down, he showed a lot of composure and moxie, stopped forcing the ball, and just let his teammates make plays. Kind of the stuff that FSU was hoping that Blackman would do. Just get your playmakers the ball, let them do the job, not try to do it all on your own. Yes, I know the irony of Jeff Sims of that, but it doesn't change what the fit is. The fact is, you have every coach, no matter where you coach in the country, it has to be the fit that you're comfortable with long term. Sure, is Jeff Sims going to help you short term wise? Is he going to be better than James Blackman? Probably, maybe. I don't know. He's not going to be going behind the Georgia Tech offense line. He's going to be behind the FSU offense line. So I don't know how well he would do. Short term, I think it would help you. But long term, he's not the fit exactly what FSU's looking for. And to me, the only way you're taking a guy that doesn't fit your system is if they're like Lamar Jackson, Tim Tebow, or Cam Newton, or somebody just so good that you just change your whole offense for.
Right, let's not even go there. Back before when Jimbo Fisher turned Lamar Jackson away as well, he could have come here. I mean, that's another one. But you're right. I mean, hindsight's 2020. You can talk about you knew Chubba Purdy was going to be hurt, and sure Jordan Travis was going to be hurt for a lot, and things weren't working out with Blackman. Sure, go back in time and take Jeff Sims, but it's a one-game sample. But I think the news, what you're giving us, Michael, there is light at the end of the tunnel. They've got some good young quarterbacks already on campus. Give him a little bit of time. Luke Altmaier seems pretty firm in his commitment. He comes next year, and suddenly that position goes from a position of weakness to strength. You just need to give it some time. I think it is going to work out for Florida State at the end. This is really good stuff, Michael. We appreciate it. Hey, if you like these videos, below Michael, you see a subscribe. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe. There's a little bell next to it, too. If you click on that, you get alerted when we have videos like this, or when you have your recruiting chat every Wednesday night. You can follow that on Warchant's YouTube channel now and get the scoop on Florida State recruiting. So go ahead and do that. And hopefully you like this videos and others. Hit that thumbs up button down there too. That helps us out a lot. Well, Michael, great stuff. I appreciate it. And I'm not going to say much here because this isn't a recruiting chat, but there's a story on Warchant about an offensive lineman, everybody wants to get excited about. So there's a story in Warchant. Read about that. I'm sure you have more on the message board, and maybe some news for Florida State next week. We'll see. I'm sure you'll talk about that more in the near future. Michael, thanks for your time, buddy. Have a good one.
You got it, man.